Hey folks, I'm Tom Bassel.
Jason Levine.
So what is this game we're playing here? This is Kashgar? Is it about cash? Okay.
Well, if you know German, you know that Handler die Seidenstrasse means merchants of the Silk Road.
Hang on a second. Okay, but this game is not currently out in English. It might be in English, but Jason managed to get the cards printed in English.
Yes.
You can't play the game without English printed cards. This is a deck building game, maybe?
Sort of a deck builder. I guess, why don't you show everyone how it's played?
Good segue. Each player gets a player board in front of them where they're going to keep track of different resources. Doesn't really matter what the resources are. They're essentially different colored resources, although gold is slightly different and donkeys is slightly different too. They have different shaped pieces. You're going to start with 3 of each of these. Now, resources are not points. They're just a way to get points at the end of the game. Players are going to get points by having cards in front of them that are worth points, although there are some that are worth negative points, and by completing contracts that are worth points. There's a few cards that are worth variable points, but once one player reaches 25 points, then the round will end, and whoever has the most points, likely the person who reached 25, is the winner. Now each player is going to have 3 columns of cards in front of them. Each column is going to have a patriarch and then some cards that are from a starting deck. There are 2 other decks, a regular deck of cards here and a deck of special cards. And players are going to, on your turn, you're going to pick a card that you have. You're going to take an action with that card or pass if you don't want to take an action with that card. And then whatever you do after you're done, you're going to take that card and put it at the back of that particular column, which then brings another card to the front. Now, everyone starts with Patriarch cards, and Patriarch cards let you do one of 2 things. You can either draw 2 cards from the standard deck, and then look at these 2 cards, discarding one of them and putting the other card at the end of the caravan. So, Spice Merchant, he's -1 point, but he has a good special ability. For each card, including this one in the caravan, my donkeys can go up 1. Okay, I'll keep her. So, I would put her in the back, and then I'd put the Patriarch in the back after using him. Now, another thing you can do with the Patriarch card is instead of doing anything else, you turn it over to the Matriarch side and then put her in the back. When the Matriarch comes to the front, you're able to go through the discard pile and pick a card. So you don't have to basically draw 2 cards. The Patriarch is more random, but it's going to take twice as much time to do the Matriarch action. Now it says here, select a card without a parting action. When you do an action on a card, you'll notice if the background here is beige, then you simply put it in the back of the row. But if you do an action that has red here, there's a parting action, then this card is removed. So here, for example, it says fulfill a small or large contract, or increase all my spices by 1. If I do either one of those actions, the Woman of the Woods is going to be taken out of my deck. And there's all sorts of different actions that can be done. Like, for example, here, she increases your gold by 2. Or she can increase one of your spices by 2. Both of those will keep the imposter in your deck. Or you can discard a card from the caravan. You pick a card and it's gone. But when you do that, the imposter is also gone. Here, this guy can set 1 spice at the same value as the same spice as another player. Now, you'll notice many of these cards have a cost. So to do this card would cost 1 of the black spice. To do this one, you would fulfill a contract. There are many cards that will have you fulfill contracts, and you'll notice the numbers there are variable. When you fulfill a contract, you first need to have a certain amount of donkeys. You don't need to spend them. You just need to have them to fulfill the contract. You then spend the stuff on the bottom of the card. So this small contract, I need to have 2 donkeys. Then I spend 1 pink spice, 2 black spices, and I also have to spend a donkey. So you will lose donkeys sometimes, but you need to have a certain amount. This large contract, I need to have 3 donkeys, then get rid of 6 white spices, 4 black spices, and 3 donkeys. But then I'm going to be able to keep this as 6 points. And so the contracts are the main way to get points, although many cards in your deck will be worth a point. However, like for example, this gypsy here, which is worth 1 point, I can use him to set one of my spices to 7, which is great. The problem is, when I do that, I have to discard him out of the game, and he is no longer worth a point to me. And so again, let's take a look at some more cards. Here, I can pay a black to set a spice at the same value as someone else. Here, I can play a black spice to increase everything else. Here, for each gold that you pay, you increase your donkeys by 1 and one of your spices by 2. The market woman just increases all your spices by 1. The mule trader can either make your mules 3 or increase them by 2. And there's all sorts of different things. Now, there is a special set of cards which you do not have to play with. In fact, the game recommends that you don't, that affect other players. These are kind of, in your face type of other cards. Here, you can make other people lose mules. Here, you can make other players' gold go down to 2, etc. But these can be removed from the deck. Some cards will also let you draw special cards and put these in your column. Special cards are basically the same as the standard cards, they're just better. You'll notice that they all have positive point values, and they have some pretty decent abilities. Here, my black spice can go up by 5, or play 4 black spice to set one of my other spices to 9. This guy lets me fulfill a contract, which many of the other cards let you do, but he's worth a point, while many of the standard cards, the people who fulfill contracts, are not as useful. This guy here, donkeys +1, gold +2, a spice +1, and he's worth 2 points. And that's basically it. So each turn you're going to pick one of your columns, do the action on that card, either discard it if it's a parting action, or put it in the back, and continue on. And then once one player gets to 25, you finish off the round, and whoever has the most points is the winner. Now, I said that this was a deck builder, and it's like you have 3 decks in front of you.
Yes.
Right? And so you're adding cards, but you don't shuffle them ever. You see the order that things are coming up.
And you kind of can plan ahead a little bit.
Right, and you also can efficientize or make one deck so that it's fewer cards, and so you're running through it more quickly. Although if you're not careful, so you can accidentally sometimes, you'll take like the Papa card out, and then you have 2 cards. You're like, oh, I don't even, I can't ever add more cards to this thing. I'm kind of stuck here. It's interesting that you do that. I would say though, if there's one thing I noticed first about the game is that it's. We often throw around the term multiplayer solitaire. This is definitely like that, right? You very rarely affect other people.
Yes, this is not a game. I mean, there are those 12 cards in there that are where you could affect other people cards, but I, again, don't recommend playing with those cards. We didn't play with it when we played, but mostly it's multiplayer solitaire, but it's a multiplayer solitaire in a good way, and I find that the deck building, or I guess caravan building, or whatever we want to call it, is very unique.
Tableau building, maybe?
Tableau building. It's just unique, and it's different, and it feels like a refreshing way to do deck building after, there's so many clones of Dominion, but this brings it in a very different way, and you have a choice. Do I want to do a lot in one row, or do I want to do a little bit in each of the other rows and burn through those rows quickly, or burn through a really long row where I could do a lot of different things along the way? And it's kind of, you have some very interesting choices the way you build your tableaus, decks. I don't even know what to call this since it's so unique.
Yeah, really, it's kind of an intriguing thing that you're putting these together and looking at. Like Jason says, you're like, oh wow, this row, and you're cranking, and this row adds all kinds of cool cards. Suddenly you're like, oh man, to get to that card, I need like 7 things in this row. And you also find that the rows that let you buy the provinces, is that what they're called? Whatever that.
It's the large buildings, small buildings.
Right. To be able to buy those, you need specific cards.
Yes.
And if you don't have enough of those cards, or you have one of those cards and it's in a big row, suddenly it's a lot of work to get that down to the bottom. In fact, I'd be playing, I'd be like, oh yeah, let's buy another one. I got the resources. Oh, I don't have the card. So now I either have to get that card down to the bottom, or get another one of those cards, stick it at the top, and cycle it through as fast as I can. And so planning ahead, you can get caught up like, ooh, I'm caught up. Look at all these, I'm just bringing in resources, and not have the buying thing. Or you might have a nice buying thing, but then suddenly realize you have no way to get resources. You got to pay attention to all that stuff.
And doing that really makes a big difference in this game, because it's, do you do a row where you get some resources, then you get a buy, which is really, I guess, more practical, because you could get resources, get a buy, get resources, get a buy, but sometimes you're not going to get the right resources for what's on the table, so you need to worry about your second or your third tableau, and this one might be just resources, this one might be just buys, or it might be a combination, and you really have to pay attention, because there's multiple things you need to worry about. You need to worry about your mules to make sure you have enough mules to be able to purchase the cards. You need to worry about your resources. Do you have enough resources to purchase cards? There's a lot of little things to worry about, and it's very, very intriguing the way you have to do it.
Now, one thing I want to point out in this game is that there's going to be luck involved using the papas. All right, you have the
patriarchs.
The patriarchs.
We'll keep calling them.
I don't know why I'm calling them papas. All right, the patriarchs. You have the patriarch, and you get 2 cards. Sometimes you don't get the cards you want. However, I do like the fact that the game says, well, you can go up against that luck by turning the patriarch to a matriarch.
Yes.
Now, that's an extra turn, but being able to go through that whole discard pile, and there will be a lot of cards in that discard pile after a while. So you have to decide, do I want to use the patriarch and go for that luck? Or do I want to use the matriarch and get maybe more of a sure thing, but it takes me longer? And I think that's a good balance. Yeah, sometimes you will draw 2 cards with patriarch, but you should almost always be able to use one of them.
Yeah.
You know, at least. Or it might have a red thing on it, in which case you just use it once and it's gone anyway.
And it's gone. But I find it interesting, the way you talk about the patriarch, matriarch, what I found interesting about that is with the patriarch, every time it comes through, you're adding a card. When you flip to the matriarch, you're spending a whole round for your cards of not adding a card, so you're keeping your tableau smaller so you can get through it quicker. So I like going to matriarch so you could keep your tableau smaller, and every 2 times through you're adding a card rather than every time through.
You still use patriarchs.
Yeah, because obviously at the beginning when there's no cards in the discard pile, you need to start building something. But at some point you want to get those matriarchs out there so you could not add more cards to your tableau. Like, oh, I don't really want to add a card. I want to get through these quicker. Let me matriarch it, go through the cards, and now I'm forced to add a card a whole cycle later.
My biggest problem with the game is the fact that the theme is bland as all get out. Once again, you are trading spices. Again! I mean, this is a cool theme, a cool mechanism, right? Why are we trading spices again? I mean, come on! And
I like spices.
I love spices. But my spices ain't these spices. My spices are mesquite, habanero, barbecue sauce.
No, I like pepper and cinnamon. I don't even know what all the spices are in this game.
It's like the same things. It looks like they stole the bags from what, Goa. It's not like the theme hurts, right? Because the theme is almost non-existent. It's just that I'm trying to get someone to play this game. I'm like, play this. They're like, well, it looks like every other game. You're right, it does. Now it's very different than other games. I just felt like that theme was repetitive.
See, I agree with you, but again, when I look at this game, I don't look at it as a themed game because you could throw the theme out the door. The theme doesn't mean anything. This is all about mechanics, and the tableau building in this game is one of the most unique things I've seen in the last few years. This is a refreshing change to deck building / getting new cards into your hand, or in this case, getting them into rows. It's unique, it's different, it adds a lot, and I hope that this mechanism catches on and that this mechanism is used for future games and future ideas because I think it's that good of a mechanism.
So what's your awesomeness rating?
On this one, my awesomeness rating is 9. This is a game that I think, obviously it's only in German, so it's going to be hard to get, but I think that hopefully someone will print this in English because it is very worthy. It's a very unique mechanism, a very well done mechanism, and I think that there's a big English market that would enjoy this mechanism.
My rating is a 7.5, but I could see it going up over time. The theme is somewhat of a detractor, not enough to really knock it down that much, but at the same time it's very mechanical. It feels like Dominion, the first time I played Dominion, except it doesn't feel as like woohoo as Dominion. This one's a little bit more thoughtful, so I like it a lot. I think it's a great system. I'd like to see maybe a cooler, more interesting game built around this system, but it's still some pretty neat ideas in it. That is Kashgar.
Thanks so much for watching the Dice Tower videos. Find more great videos and reviews as well as our top-rated audio podcast at Dicetower.com. You can also find other great shows at DicetowerNetwork.com. I'm Eric Summerer, and you've been watching The Dice Tower. The Dice Tower is sponsored by Cool Stuff Inc., where you can find great games for great prices. Cool stuff in stock. Check them out at CoolStuffInc.com.
Blah-de, 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 blah.